the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. B. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington.
Welcome to the show. Now, we decided for this next show that we were going to do the best of, because this is the end of the year and the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. There's a lot of stories that we liked, and here's the thing. Normally for us, we don't do a lot of response video because over the course of years, we've learned that it's best to wait for the other shoe to drop. That way you don't have to hurry back, get another video, try to correct what you said before. But usually there's a continuation to the story. Now, a lot of the stories that we're going to mention, there's already a history, or they're connected with another story that came out maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, but it's interconnected. And there's a good chance that in the future, there's going to be a big part of what we call the culture war. Take, for instance, this first story. Now, this first story is about Calvary Chapel in San Jose. They just recently, in December, it was recorded that they were being sued by Newsom. Here in California, that's a big name. Okay, you can put up the, let's see if we can put that headline up right now. And Cynthia, if you want to read it, where's my notes? Oh, here we go. Okay, you can put, Mr.
Good
Producer,
job.
you can put, oh, no problem, thank you. You can put that headline up if you want.
All right.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, so coming from the Christian Post, California church to appeal $1.2 million fine for breaching COVID-19 lockdown orders. Okay, so let me see. A California church is going to appeal a decision in which a court ruled it had to pay over $1.2 million in fines for violating COVID-19 lockdown orders. Calvary Chapel, San Jose is facing $1,228,700 in fines for refusing to follow Santa Clara County's mask wearing requirements from November 2020 and June 2021.
All right, now let me give you the background on this. Okay, now in 2019, we heard of what was called COVID-19. It hadn't been officially announced yet. Okay, by March of 2020, we were at what you call full lockdown mode. If you remember, if you use your history, hop in Back to the Future mobile, and that's what happened. Now, during that time, churches was a little suspicious of the whole COVID thing. We were very suspicious, especially me, because I knew that they had a test run the year before. I think it was called Event 2019 or something like that. You can look it up. I don't have it right here, but it was a test run for for some kind of virus. Now, okay, now as the months went on, by 2020, March of 2020, we went into what was called full lockdown. We stayed in full lockdown until February 2021. A year later, almost a year later, we were in full lockdown here in California. Now, in contrast, Florida, the month that we went into lockdown in April of 2020, Florida opened wide open. That was the second clue. Okay, somebody's lying. Okay, something's going on. The third clue was they were still having what was called the summer of the summer of peace. Was the George Floyd riots. But they weren't shutting those down, but they kept shutting down the churches. They shut down all the churches. Okay, now a few key pastors. John MacArthur, who just passed away. Jack, what's his name, Cynthia?
Jack Hibbs.
Jack Hibbs, Calvary Chapel, Chino Hill. Rob McCoy, who is the second in charge of TPUSA Faith, and was actually the mayor of the city that he was in. What city was that? Yeah. And he had to retire because he knew something was wrong. Another guy named Shane Idleman was having services in the desert in Lancaster. Now, a reason that we know, me and my wife know, is because we went to the services during the lockdown. That's right. People were still having services because they didn't trust what they were hearing. Okay, and we were getting accused of calling super spreaders. We were also called non-essential. The churches were called non-essential. I'll prove that in a minute. But the other churches, the liberal churches and the churches that fell for it, would say, "Oh, you're being a bad example. You should love your neighbor and close down your church." But it was like something's wrong. And then the lawsuits start coming. First, it was MacArthur. And then they tried to, what they did was with the MacArthur's church, he said, no, nobody's getting sick. Because he was having these services every Sunday, and every Sunday there was a fine. Okay, there was a fine. But he refused. He was like, okay, God said we need to, keep service, keep doing this. Because something ain't right. Something don't even, or the spirit ain't that is telling us this COVID is what they're saying it is. Meanwhile, we're supposed to be on lockdown. So Newsom is after, they're after these churches. They tried to take his MacArthur's parking lot. Meanwhile, Jack Hibbs was getting fined. Now, I know about Jack Hibbs Church, I know about Rob McCoy Church, and I know about Shane out in the desert, because we went to those services. And we were not wearing a mask. Nobody was wearing a mask. We were sitting right next to each other, and nobody got sick. There was no outbreak of COVID at each church. Rob was in the news. I went and visited his church to show support. There were protesters outside. Yet they didn't get sick, and neither did the people in the church. This is during the heart of the lockdown. So they're getting fined. Okay, so they had to take their court. They had to take their cases to the Supreme Court. But this was after a year later when they had the partial opening. In February of 21, they had a partial opening. Now, what this meant was that what they call essential places could open under what was called the purple tier, which I thought was a stupid name, but the purple tier. Now, let me go through a list. I'll look this up, and let me show you what was open while the churches were closed. Retail stores opened their doors at limited capacity with mask and social distancing requirements, but they were still there. Shopping malls were open indoors at limited at capacity. The food courts were also open. Okay, churches, you're still closed. Okay, personal care, such as hair salons, there's no way you're gonna catch COVID with a barber right next to you and somebody, anyway. Nail salons, electrolysis, body waxing could operate indoors with modifications. Churches still closed.
Weren't the weed shops open too at that
Yeah,
time?
well, the weed shops and some of the bars were open. But
It was
this
a
is
closed
actually,
shop.
look this up. Manufacturing food plants, process plants, warehouses, transportation facilities were open with guidelines. Child care centers, the kids.
How about the abortion clinics?
We'll get to that. Library. I'm just showing you the legal, the stuff that you wouldn't. Well, of course, Christians are going to look at those things. But I just want to show you the regular facilities that were open, libraries. But churches were still closed. Churches did not open, okay? They did not open until March 19, 2020. They started allowing us to go in at what, we had to, go through a security check. We had to be masked. We had to sit 6 feet apart. There was madness there for a long time here in California. Meanwhile, these guys takes Newsom to court and win. Each one of them won. They sued the state of California and won. Now, let's talk about the story we're just talking about. This shows you that Newsom still has a resentment, that they still have it out for churches. They don't care if you can talk in tongues. They don't care if you're a 5-point Calvinist. They don't care if you're a Mormon. They don't care if you're Catholic. They don't care about your denomination. You're a church. I want that to sink in. That's why we're doing this story. Because what's coming next year? Oh, you better believe it's war. It's cultural war. Well, anyway, with this story, he has to fight this out. Now, the second part of the story is the crazy part. Now, Mr. Producer, if you can pull up what's called geofencing. Now, the technique that they were using to monitor, because I used to always wonder, I'm sure Newsom has spies in here. He does not need spies. If you can pull up it's called geofencing. There it is. Now, this is the technique that they use on churches. Okay? It's a location-based technology used GPS, Wi-Fi, or cellular data to create a virtual boundary around a real-world area, triggering automatic actions through mobile devices. This is what they use to monitor churches, y'all. Ain't that something? Ain't that Star Trek? Ain't that Matrix? In other words, they put a fence around the church and they monitor who's going in by tracking your cell phone. They know your name. They can turn on your phone. And that's what Calvary Chapel is suing the governor for. Ain't that something? So there's more tentacles to this story, and this is a warning shot. Okay, now keep in mind, you may feel good because of who's president and some of the laws that we're going to talk about that's been changed. But don't let that fool you, because you got a mid-election coming up, and the pendulum always swings back. And when it swings back, be prepared. Anyway, let's go to the next story. The next story is
Supreme Court.
Yeah, do the Supreme Court one.
Okay.
You can pull it up.
Got it. Okay, so this is coming from SCOTUS blog. Supreme Court declines to hear case on constitutionality of same-sex marriage. The Supreme Court turned down a request from Kim Davis, a former county clerk in Kentucky, to reconsider its 2015 decision recognizing a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. In a brief, unsigned order, the justices rejected Davis's petition for review of a ruling by a federal appeals court upholding an award of $100,000 to a gay couple whom she had refused to issue a marriage license. That petition had also asked the justices to overrule the 2015 decision, Obergefell versus Hodges, arguing that a right to same-sex marriage has no basis in the Constitution.
Now, okay, now this goes all the way back. Now, what this court was really about, it involved Kim Davis. Now, if you remember Kim Davis from years ago, like my wife was just reading, is that she refused. This was right when the Obergefell decision came in. Now, keep in mind what the Obergefell decision is. It is not law. It's a court opinion that they turned into law. The same way we were just talking about the abortion law that we followed for years. We thought it was law. It turned out it was never law. See, the Supreme Court is supposed to fight for what is constitutional. And that decision, what was it called? It's so long ago. What was the abortion thing called?
Wade. Roe versus Wade.
Roe versus Wade was never actual law. It was never legislated. That's why when the right people got in, they turned it back to the states. Well, the same thing happened with Obergefell. It's really not law. It's not really law. It's an opinion by the court that they made into law. So it can be reversed. Now, with this court case, was important. It was the first of many to come. Okay. And while they have kind of the wind to their backs, they knew that this case wouldn't go very far. But what it did was it was like planting seed. It just planted seed. They knew that the court they thought they might actually hear it, but the Supreme Court was like, oh, well, no, we don't want to handle this right now. We just won one. Let's see what we can do with that. So anyway, anybody got a comment?
No, by not hearing it, there's clerks that determine what they hear and what they don't. So it's getting a lot of news as though it's something definitive. What takes place is we've heard they have a lot of busy dockets, a lot of things that are actually ending up favoring conservatives. So the fact that it wasn't accepted in a stack isn't a decision. There's a clerk or someone, while considering what they're going to hear, it didn't make the stack. So the news is jumping on it because it favors them. The mainstream media wants to make it look like something. But just as you state, it could just easily be reconsidered in the next section. So it's not necessarily a refusal unless they all get on and write and say, I'm not going to decide. But it not making the stack of, now granted, they've got to watch who's there in terms of the clerks because that determines quite a bit. But it's not as big as it seems. If they take it up and say we refuse to comment or we refuse to change, it's one thing. But refusing to hear quite often is simply not putting it on stack A as opposed to stack B.
So it's not it's worthy to note, but don't put a lot of stock in it. In other words,
the mainstream media, they've taken so many L's. What is it? 27 or 29 out of 32 major decisions have gone to Trump's way in a conservative way. So they've taken so many lumps that even a lack of a decision to hear something, they've got to try to stretch out a win wherever they can. And so obviously all the mainstream media jumps on because it's something they want. So they echo it over and over and over, and it seems a lot bigger than it actually is. But it could simply be reheard, or they could act on it in the next session or whatever the aim is. But, 27 out of 32, they've lost and lost and lost. And of course, when they lose, they scream and talk about how unjust the court is. It wasn't unjust when they had the decision on gay marriage and Obama painted the White House or lit up the White House like a rainbow. It wasn't unjust with Roe versus Wade, even though these other things were there. But whenever it goes against the mainstream media and liberal agenda, then of course they say, hey, we've got to abolish it. We need to saturate the court. They can't be trusted. The justices are unethical. whatever it is.
What they call pack the court.
Exactly. That's their suggestion. The bottom line is they think the court is there to affirm them. And every time they make a rational decision that goes against them, then of course they scream about how unjust it is. But if they squeak something by like they did under Obama with that gay marriage decision, then they celebrate and talk about how wonderful they are. And we've got to stand under their laws because after all, they're the law. So if they're the law in that case, then they're the law when these 27 out of 32 decisions go against them.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, hang on. I'm trying to get my computer to act right. Okay, we got another story. Oh boy. Now, let me start off by saying this. Okay. Just recently at the what they call the TPUSA event, Nicki Minaj was invited on stage. Now, Nicki Minaj has quite a history, okay? And well, let's just look at a little bit of this. Back in 2012, she was honored at, I guess, the Grammy Awards, and she did a exorcism, or part of her act was an exorcism from some gay spirit named Roman Zelensky. Am I saying that right, Cynthia?
I don't know what the last name was, but I know Roman was like her alter ego, kind of like Sasha Fierce is the alter ego of Beyonce.
Ah, okay. Oh, so legions. Okay, I got it. No problem. I got it. All right. Okay, so the album was called Roman Holiday. Then her most recent, because I just looked it up the other day. Her most recent thing was a couple of years ago. And it was the same. It was what you expect from Nicki Minaj. But then what's her face? The other one, Latino chick, took over, and she'd been kind of, playing in the background. Well, the way I see it, two things happened. Either she reconsidered, and this was an opportunity for her to clean herself up and get out what she really thought, because there was a lot of rumor that she was very conservative when it came to a lot of stuff. Okay. And then when the opportunity to defend Christians that were in Africa, she was one of the loudest speakers about that, about the atrocity that's going over there against Muslims. So they invited her on the thing, on the stage with Erica Kurt, and literally all hell broke loose. There she's been They're a petition to send her back to wherever Trinidad. Now, the only reason I bring this up is we know what Nicki was, and honestly, the other shoe haven't dropped. I'm not saying anything because when Kanye first so-called went through his Christian phase, I was like, okay, I've seen Kanye. When I used to work at the airport, I've met Kanye when he used to go off on reporters. You remember those moments, Cynthia? Yeah, he was a little, and I was back there, I was like, that boy's schizo. You got to watch out. Anyway, with this, I think it's too early to tell what her true intentions are. We don't know if it's an alter ego. We don't know if it's true. We don't know. It's just, well, it could be because I wasn't relevant no more, and this is a way of staying relevant, or it could be a authentic change, and this is my opportunity to get out from all that stuff I used to do, and my opportunity to go forward for my kids. Okay, now in contrast, that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is Christian artists. Since we used to, when we had our old podcast, it was music. We used to involve a lot of music, R&B, and Christian R&B and Christian hip hop and stuff. Well, I became a little bit jaded with the whole scene, because of people like who we're about to talk about. Now, enter Kirk Franklin. Now, one thing, let me just say this. In Luke, it tells us this. It says, woe unto you when everyone speaks well of you for for that is how their ancestors treated false prophets. Keyword, false prophet. In other words, when the world is agreeing with you, there's a very good chance you're a false prophet and you're on their side and don't realize it. Now, a lot of the Christian artists, they go on secular shows and start bad-mouthing Christianity. That's been a trend for a while. All the way, I remember when Lecrae used to do it. He would go on these secular shows and badmouth Christianity because he did something that wasn't Christian. And at the time he was saying, I'm not a Christian rapper. So it's like, okay, well then don't get mad when we comment. Don't come in our lane. But he would go on the shows and he would badmouth Christianity, especially during the riots when he was wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. And it's like, dude, what? Huh? Why do you go to them and badmouth Christianity when you could just come on a Christian show and debate it among Christians and maybe change your mind? Anyway, the latest enter is at the end of the last year was Kirk Franklin. Now, Kirk Franklin goes on this show. I don't have the name of it right now, and maybe the video's playing. Who knows? And the person that hosts the show is ever so great, very gay, and he's one of the kind that think that gay and Christianity goes together. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's from Atlanta. Do you want to say something, Sam?
Yeah, I want to give you the name of the show.
Okay.
Reality with the King. Now, I don't know if that's the topic or the name of the show. Let me see. I'm going to back up here.
Anyway, Reality of the King.
That's Reality with the King.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play a few clips from that. We'll have them edited in. Let me see here if I can get my machine to work. Okay, now in this first clip, you're going to see. Now, what's so sad about this is that you can see the hurt in Kurt's eyes because apparently his son is bisexual. We found I didn't know this, but a lot of times they say bisexual when they actually just mean gay. And he said the community's praying, that he's talking about the family community, the friends, people he grew up with, and they've always had problems. And I think does he have mental problems too? Cynthia,
Yeah, no, that's a lot of the problem as well, is that he's got mental health issues. Status, you know?
Yeah. And you can see it's almost like a father that's trying to reach for his son and there's no reaching for him. So in this first clip, you'll see him talking about the community that's praying for him.
There is a community of people that cannot sleep until he wins. We will not be okay until he's well.
In this next clip, they're going to mention, the host is going to ask him, when was the last time he spoke to him? Now, what I want you to notice is Kirk never answers the question. He never answers that question. And you can see the pain, him trying to even do gymnastics around the question.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
You know, the conversations now need to be inclusive of things that allow him to be able to be present. Is that fair?
I get what you're saying.
In this final clip, he makes a statement. And if you know anything about the movement, the gay movement, the LGBT movement, they have what they call allies. These are straight people that support their agenda. And one of the key phrases that you heard over the course of years is love is love. Okay, now this is what he's about to say is what an ally would say. So I'm not sure if he's agreeing, and we'll comment afterwards.
And I told my son, there will never be any situation in your life that I will ever ever stop loving you. I will love who you love. And I will stand where you stand. We may not always agree. We may not, and that's okay because there's no monolithic ideal at all to life. But love will be the leading narrative.
With that being said, I'm going to love who you love. That is kind of really kind of ambiguous, if you ask me. And it's like I'm going to accept whatever you've done, and I think it's kind of he's looking at it like a I would say a liberal progressive Christian would look at it and try to attach the prodigal son, parable to it and say, well, we just welcome him back. I'm just happy to have my son back. It's like, yeah, but you don't accept the sin. That kind of still stands. Well, you guys have any comments about that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say that this is going to tie into the next gospel artist because there's like some parallels.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And then
okay.
when we get to the next story, then you'll see what I'm talking about.
All right. Go ahead, Pastor Davis.
Yeah, I was going to say, even going on to a show with that title, with that theme, there's an issue. As you say, people are trying to equate the two. We know Atlanta is just run over as far as the Christian community, where they're almost parallel and they're going side by side. So it probably just shouldn't have been on there at all. The other thing, both with this and the other, is we have artists, and artists are artists. And a lot of times they're trying to preserve themselves, preserve their career, preserve their stream of income at the cost of everything else. The bigger issue is, the Bible had a standard when it came to music, when it came to worship and everything else. They were minstrels, they were psalmists. David had the chorus. They were Levites, they were servants of God and everything else. And that was in general. And then from among them, there were qualified people who were put up and were there to, establish worship and music. They were there for God. They would lead in battle. And that's just to say there's a basic standard when it comes to worship. And the fact that we even talk about it, we have this whole community of what are called Christian artists. And that's the aim. And I've seen it and I've heard it from several where they want to be lifted up and venerated. They make money and everything else from the performance as an artist. But it's not a general audience. The audience is the church. It's the people of God. And so whether it's music, teaching, and everything else, there's a standard. The standard is the word of God. Everything is to be derived from there and to be consistent with that. But once we depart from that, then anything is possible. So that's the first. And then the second is we're putting people up as artists. And because they're artists and they have popularity, we're listening to them. We're listening to their opinions. We're lifting them up and everything else. And the Bible does the opposite. You look at qualifications for an elder, qualifications for a ruler, for a teacher, for a servant, for a deacon. The Levites had qualifications. The priests had qualifications. We see times when they were judged when they went afoul of that. And then beyond all those qualifications, then they were given the privileged ability to lead in worship. Then their skill came in. You look at Kenaniah, he was over the singers because he was skillful. But you separate the ministry and the walk and simply look at ability and performance, then what you've got is a product and you've got entertainment. And so we keep hearing this cry over and over and over. They're entertainers. They want the money. They want the riches, but they don't want the accountability. And so when people start saying, hey, we're simply requiring and questioning and holding you accountable for what you claim to be, which is a worship leader, a choir leader, a singer. It's rooted in the gospel because you can go anywhere. You can go secular. A lot are not good enough to make it in the secular world, so they stay there. And so I think as a body, whether it's this or whether it's people we call teachers or people we call pastors, people we call bishops, people we call worship leaders and everything else, the qualifications of an elder that Paul gave to Timothy, the standards of just a walking believer who could be in the community and who couldn't. And the Bible made a distinction. Jesus said, hey, I said to you to avoid fornicators. And he said, I did not mean the fornicators of the world, for then you would need to go out of the world. He said, but if any which are called a brother, and that's the key. He said there's a different standard for someone who is called a brother. He said, now
Yeah.
for them, there's a different standard. And he mentioned specific things. And he said, let these things not once be named among you. And so the biggest issue is putting people up based on performance and based on skill, and not really having that, just that regular standard. And what is it? It says, basically, if anyone who is called a brother also walk in these things, 1 Corinthians 5:11. But now I've written unto you not to keep company. If any that is called the brother be a fornicator, covetous, idolater, railer, drunkard, or an extortioner, with such one not to eat. And so that's the distinction. There's a difference in how the body functions among itself, and there's a difference in those that are teachers, those that are worship leaders, and everything else. And I think that's the distinction. People are saying, hey, I want to be an artist, I want to take the money, but I don't want the accountability. I want to be able to do and walk in whatever way I want. And so that's the issue. So in Kirk's case, you look at this, the word's the word. And if we were using the standard of the word, then there would be no more questions. The word is the word, and there's truth. And so if you deal with anything that the Bible calls sin, it's just sin. Your opinion doesn't matter. The host you're talking to doesn't matter. The show you're on doesn't matter. Which family member you're looking at doesn't matter. And so
There
it's
it
just
is. Right
that.
there.
And so we say we love and we'll pray. And yes, we're praying, but there's an accountability. But then we just say, hey, if you have someone who's dealing with that, just as any of us would have someone that's a sinner, we call it sin and say we're praying for them. What we don't do is try to use our celebrity to make it okay because it's affecting our family member.
There
And the
it
same on the
is.
other side. There's
And
not an
there,
accountability. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll say
I was just
there's not.
I
Go
was going
ahead,
to say,
Sam.
there's so many people that they have a certain standard, they claim to have a certain biblical standard of sin until it affects their personal life and their family. And then they want
Yes.
to all of a sudden, have a little wiggle room for, to accept that as well, and him and haw over, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right. You know,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because it reminds me of when I was a child, and my dad, he was from the old school. When I say old school, I mean he was born in 1918. Okay, and this was in the 70s, so he was like in his 40s and 50s raising me. And he used to tell us, he said, "Look here," he says, "if you go out and break the law and the police is looking for you, I'm going to personally find you and turn you in, because I taught you better than that. If they come to me, don't come to me trying to hide,
Yes.
because I already told you, I taught you right from wrong, and you
Yeah.
chose to do wrong, and I told you this is what's going to happen to you, boy." So I think about those moments. I was like, okay.
Yes.
At the time, I was thinking, man, that sure is cold. You turn your own son in? And you're like, yep, I sure would, because you didn't
Yes.
get it. Maybe somebody else can show it to you. Okay,
Yes.
listen.
Yes. And so
Now,
this,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, so the standards are, basically the word of God, and we hold ourselves to that standard as leaders. Even if you're an usher or you're a deacon, there are qualifications that we see in the word, and we say, hey, this is it's simply what it is, and we walk with it. When people walk consistent with it, then we say, hey, you're walking consistent with it. When people are walking inconsistent with it, then we call it clearly. Now, God still loves you. God can still forgive you. God can still deliver, but the word is the word, and what's against the word is against the word, period. And then part of that is it goes back to, I think, the responsibility of leaders, pastors, and churches in getting away from teaching the word. We're teaching what's popular. We're teaching what'll get likes. We're teaching, what will bring people to give an offering without the conviction. And so the same thing goes with this next story. A person who's been on top forever, and these artists go from place to place, not sitting in accountability, not being held accountable for the body. No one asking, are you taking in the word? Are you taking in real doctrine? Is your theology in line with the word? And is your artistry driven by proper theology? And so you find out people have been on top for 30 years and they utter things that are completely contrary to the word of God, as far as the identity, the nature, the substance, the character, the attributes of God. It can be a
Well,
thing, it can be a woman or anything else.
look
Because
here.
yes.
Here's what we're gonna do. we're gonna tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna play some of Yolanda's old hits. Okay, we're gonna play these old hits. Now, this first hit, this is a classic. I have to play this because it's Yolanda Adams.
Because I didn't hear a name before.
Oh, it's Yolanda Adams. Okay, we're talking about Yolanda Adams. You know, she's a legend. She's a benchmark. She's the one of the who's of gospel music, a gospel legend, as they would call it. My mother used to like rest her soul, Yolanda Adams. Now we're gonna play one of her abstract hits. This is Kamala Harris and the Super Friends. Okay, and the Super Friends, and this is they're campaigning for Kamala Harris. Now, in case you don't know who Kamala Harris is, in case you don't know who that is, okay. In spiritual talk, if there was a how can I say this?
Child sacrifice?
Well, no, I was going to say if there was a temple of Moloch, she would be a high priestess of it.
Yeah.
She would be a high priestess in the temple of Moloch. Okay. Okay. Now, this is her and a bunch of people that was in the news quite a bit. And then we have some classic people like the Clark sisters that join in with this song. All right, go ahead and let it rip.
The faith community has always served as a beacon of hope in trying times.
And this election
Is no different.
we are going to remember this moment forever
The moment we chose joy and freedom.
as a new way forward.
Some say faith and politics don't mix, but freedom and hope do. Seeing people from all different backgrounds
Races, religions, and genders.
gather to show their support and enthusiasm
For Kamala Harris is
church.
She exudes integrity,
Dignity
humanity.
and empathy.
and she can reach across the aisle, any aisle, and get things done.
That's what we need in the White House. The time is now.
The time is now. This moment, right now.
Each of us are called to our own vineyard. This is Kamala's. When our sister wins, we all win.
Vote for Kamala Harris by November the 5th.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Okay, that was a oldie but goodie from Yolanda Adams and her Super Friends. Now we're gonna play her latest hit that went kind of viral. This one is called "He, She, It." Literally. Now, there's a lot of background to this story. First of all, I'm going to make a few comments, and I'm going to let my wife have it because she went all in on this one, 10 toes deep.
I don't think that God is this small entity that people are trying to make him or her or it, because he is spirit. Because we are of the mind of calling things, gender wise, because that's how we grew up. I'm just going to continue to say if he was going to be surprised by you, he wouldn't have created you. Because it's like, how do you think God is surprised just because you're surprised? And if he made all things, and if he created all things, God is a God of variety. God is a God of diversity. We wouldn't have a million genuses of flowers if he were not. I just believe that God entrusts us with his power to make the world a better place, to encourage and inspire, to uplift, never to put what we think on somebody else. I can tell you how much your God loves by the people you hate. Wait a minute. We've heard it since we were kids. God is love. 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 But if God is love, how come you hate the person he in love created?
I could not figure how a Christian person could come with the conclusion to vote for Kamala Harris as a Christian. If you know the history of her here in California, you think Newsom was bad. She was running partners with Newsom. And a lot of stuff that got overturned, like Proposition 8, Kamala did that. Okay, Kamala was part of that. He went against the church. Okay, so I'm thinking, how could you possibly? And like I said, her push on abortion, and anyway, what could lead a person? And then I heard that, and I'm like, oh, I can see now. I see it now. I can see why you would vote for. Come on. What else did you discover in your brief investigation, Cynthia?
Okay. All right.
Take some more hits.
Yeah. Well, she was on this, what do you call this, podcast called Faith Community Virtual, where she made the he, she, it comment.
Okay.
Go straight to the source rather than listening to bits and pieces. So I listened to the entire thing that was available to me. If you want to hear the whole thing, you have to sign up with Patreon, blah, blah, blah. I'm not paying money for all that. Okay. So I listened to 1 hour and 10 minutes. So you don't have to. Okay.
Thank God.
So I'm going to give you a little background on the Faith Community Virtual. Because initially, when we first heard what she had said about God, we thought she was talking to a, secular podcast, and it wasn't. The description of this is, the faith community is a groundbreaking, inclusive faith community where the traditional meets the transformational.
Okay, go ahead.
It exists to challenge harmful religious norms while creating a safe, affirming space for spiritual seekers of all kinds. Through virtual connection, theological integration, and an emphasis on love and self-acceptance, TFC helps its audience find abundant life and community without compromising their identity. So that's a little bit of background behind the people that interviewed her.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, go back. Go ahead. I just had to let all that word salad, that spiritual word salad mixture of all of that is all kind of flags are going up, stop signs, lights, flashing, trucks running into you, police trying to stop you, don't go. Okay. Now, wait. We had a debate. I was smoking weed as she was talking. I
was saying the same thing you said, and then I read the name. Let me read to you this. The name of the title of the podcast of this episode is The Theology of Gospel Music with Yolanda Adams. Underneath it says, holy smokes, quotation mark, or no, semicolon, colon, 2 dots, cigars and spirituality.
The spirituality part is what I'm concerned about.
I don't know where spirituality and cigars connect, but
no. One was clearly rolling a blunt in a cigar. So
it was just cigars, because I looked at the guy and he was smoking. It was clear he was smoking a cigar. But you said that the lady was rolling up.
She was rolling up one before they lit up. I was watching her. I'm like, that looks like she's okay. I guess they're gonna talk of God now. Maybe she's Rastafarian. I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Consciousness.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm just going to quote to you a few things that Yolanda had to say during the podcast. Let me see. You know what? I'm going to go back here. When she was asked about who God is, aside from the fact that God was he, she, or it, God is all in all, for all, and created everything and everybody, and no matter what color, sexual orientation, all of that stuff, ... Now, it sounds like pantheism to me. I think it's pantheism where God is in everything, if I am correct in my...
It sounds like Zoolander 2. Wait. It sounds like Zoolander 2 when they meet that model and he says, I am all. Yeah. No matter what. Is he a boy or girl? No, I am all. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So then also another thing that was discussed was, here's another thing. You know, people say you love the sinner and hate the sin.
Okay.
She said it's nowhere in the Bible, and nobody's saying that that's an exact quote from scripture. I don't know anyone who's ever said that was a direct quote. It's implicated. Okay.
It's the principle behind it. It's a principle behind it.
Well, exactly. So that was discussed, and what was said was that let me see. Oh, this is what she said. It was created to that quote, or that, that saying was created to give more credence to what someone disliked rather than missing the mark, because we all know sin is missing the mark, literally. She was saying, well, it means missing the mark, but people generally don't mean that when usually they say it's what's a big way to give an example? I'm trying to give an example. Like, let's just say you're going from point A to point B and you go in the wrong direction. That's kind of what she was saying. Oh, it's not really that serious. It's not like it's not a sin in itself.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because wait, let me say this. If you get on the freeway and you discover you're going the wrong way, pushing the gas faster, driving faster isn't going to help your situation.
It's not. And then also was discussed, sin is looked at, this is what the host said, sin is looked at differently by different denominations. So basically, some people say this is a sin, other people say this is a sin, other different denominations and such. And we determine sins according to their identity. So in other words, if we say that a person who is gay is living in sin, no, we're just being judgmental and we're identifying them as sinners when they're no worse than we are. Okay, yeah. Now, if you want to know where she got some of her thoughts from, within the context of the conversation, she was saying her father, she was describing how she was raised, with her father and everything, and how they had such an open house. He had all these friends from, she was naming all these different cultures. Within the cultures, she was basically saying Hinduism, Islam, etc., etc. So she's like saying that, okay, he had a lot of friends from India, and a lot of friends from Pakistan, and a lot of friends from blah, blah, blah. And it was basically implicating that he had friends from all different frameworks of faiths that had an impact on her. This is my interpretation from the way she said it. And he also taught in a progressive school. He was a professor in a progressive school, right? Huh?
You're talking about one of the hosts. The host.
No, this is Yolanda.
Oh, Yolanda Adams had? Oh, I did not.
Was a teacher, a professor in a progressive school. Yes, and he was the one that had all the friends from different cultures, and she was raised around all of this. Now, I'm going to make this one last quote here. Let me see, this is something that she said. This is a really good one, because she was talking about how, and this has to do with health and being, about health and things. And she's talking about how she mixes a lot of herbs and she does a lot of things in order to be able to, maintain her health and to cure certain ailments, this, that, and the other thing. And people within the church have basically said something to the I want to put this, basically suggested that she was practicing some sort of witchcraft. Now, she tried to justify witchcraft by using, remember when Saul was trying to contact Samuel and used the witch Endor? She was saying that, the prophets weren't able to contact the witch, so apparently the witch could do it, so therefore he was justified in that, and her witchcraft was justified. Yeah, because
Pastor
she
Davis,
didn't contact Saul. I'm sorry, Samuel.
wow. Well, this can get deeper, but unfortunately, we are.
So many things. There were so many things. Those were just a few that I wrote down, but there were so many things.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time now, so we're gonna have to put this on pause. This is just part one of news and well, I'm still kind of dizzy off of what you were just telling me, but this is just part one of the news and review. So on the next episode, we'll continue this and I'll let you know what it's about. So until next time, this is the panel. We're shutting down. Stay tuned for Red segment. Witches, huh? Witches. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Red Pill Theology. We'll catch you on the next run.
Welcome back to the show. Well, in case you remember this guy, yeah, he had the most likes and everything. He was on our show last year. This year, he's back again, called Tycrit. He's from Booney, Canada. Booney, Canada. Way up yonder where it's cold, and then but white folks. Anyway, nobody messed up the interview.
You said we were going to be serious.
Oh, we're serious. We never met. Okay, here we go. Okay, now Carl, he has a couple of books out. One I highly recommend.
Game of Gods.
Game of Gods, because I have it on my desk, but I forgot to bring it. I don't know. Listen, this is serious though. If you want reference to transformational festivals, globalism, cults, world events, and in a Bible frame, this is, I call him an expert. He doesn't like to be called that because he's very humble, but he's very knowledgeable. That's why he's at places like this. And if in case you're wondering, we're in Bakersfield at Rock Harbor Church, Brandon Holthouse Church, and this is the Prophecy Conference Part 2. Now, Carl, last time, we know you like to go over to Burning Man to save folks. That's just unheard of, okay?
But it's been good. Yeah, God's good. Even though the world is crazy, God's good.
He puts himself in the middle of pagan festivals and somehow pull people out of it, or at least plant the seed.
Well, yeah, in terms of pagan events, I've been to a few. Paganicon in Minneapolis.
What is pagan? Explain that to these people.
Oh, sure. So Paganicon, by the way, it's one of many events, okay? So these are dedicated witchcraft conferences, conventions, or festivals. And so Paganicon is one of them that I've attended. I've attended others as well, but PantheaCon being the other big one that used to be in San Jose, California. And that one would have about 2,500 witches in it. Paganicon is right around 1,000 witches.
Real witches.
Yeah, but okay, they're just people. And we have to remember every knee will bow.
Okay, so now tell me, how severe from the scale, like white witches or black witches or whatever?
Biblically, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter?
No. You're still lost. You're still essentially worshiping nature.
That was the next one. Okay. But before you get into that, now, 2 weeks ago, I preached at a church. I brought up the term eco-spirituality. You want to know where I got that from? This guy right here. He in his book, once again, Game of Gods. Okay.
And you know where I got that from?
Where?
From spending time with the pagans, from spending time with those involved in what's called deep ecology.
Deep ecology, I remember that.
Yeah. And because that's what ecology becomes. It becomes a worship of nature. It becomes a worship of, and in terms of even the biblical concept of this is even if, how do I say this? even if you say, oh, there's no God, there's no spirituality, but I'm going to live for myself, that's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing because we're creation. We're part of creation.
Where does it go from simply that to idolatry?
Actually, anytime when we elevate creation over the Creator, we're involved in a form of idolatry.
And we wrap our identity into that.
That's right. So our identity is to be with Jesus Christ, who is literally the author of life, literally the one who creates us, the one who's made us, the one who's breathed breath into us. So then to say that it comes from anywhere else, well, it's a lie, and it's an affront. At this point now, we're involved in, you almost call it, divine identity theft.
Oh, identity theft. What?
Well, yeah, because now we're claiming to be, at least this, in terms of elevation, exaltation, like God.
Like, there it is, right there.
Right, but we're not.
The same thing Satan thought, or Lucifer thought, same thing he told Eve, he would be like God. Okay.
So Jesus Christ rising from the dead demonstrates that he's the author of life. I mean, the whole world has been switched on its head because of what happened at the resurrection. Because nobody else has done it.
No, that is true.
Right.
Now,
right there, it changes the whole game, doesn't it?
It changed it. Yes, you better believe it. We have a lot of different types of idolatry happening, all simultaneously. At one time. And a lot of it is very organized. In fact, we just got past the memorial of Charlie Kirk.
Yes,
who was very misunderstood, I believe. Now, they said that some witches had tried to put a curse on it. Are you going to answer that question? But I want you to answer, as a person that's washed in the blood of Jesus Christ, should we worry about witchcraft and curses? There's two points.
No. We should worry about it in the sense that what we're looking at is an alternative truth claim.
Okay.
So witchcraft, curses, we're talking then about a spiritual antithesis to the gospel message. This is the opposite. This is to say that and I've heard this from the witchcraft community itself, we are a religion of nature, but it's embodied within entities and gods and goddesses and different spirits.
Right.
You know, that type of thing. But the bottom line is, and we forget this, that even the demonic realm, the realm of angels, be they fallen angels or not fallen angels, all of that is still a created realm.
That's it.
God created all of that.
So in part, they violate worshiping the created instead of the creator at all points from self to things.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we need to be concerned about it in the sense that, okay, now we have a challenge to the truth claims of Jesus Christ. Can we answer those logically? Can we answer them well? We really should be more concerned about our own response to it than almost anything else. Does it exist? Is it real? Yeah. Are the curses real? Yeah, but at the same time, every knee will bow.
Every tongue shall confess.
Every tongue will confess, including the entities behind the pagan community.
Now, lately, my organization, we deal with a lot of African American churches, and within the within that set, we still have to deal with what's called African spirituality, hoodoo, voodoo, what's that, herba, in case you didn't know, Patrice from BLM was a high priestess, and she would prevent at some of the events for BLM would have rituals right there. And I have a picture in one of my presentations with the angel wings and all the weird stuff, and it's like, okay, even there is no boundaries. There's no race to this thing. This is completely spiritual.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, concerning Charlie Kirk, should people be concerned about that?
About the curses put on him?
What do you think that the demons are celebrating, even if it's a lie?
Oh, they may be. But, I mean, Charlie Kirk had put his faith and trust in Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
And there's nothing that's going to take his soul out of the hands of Christ. Just like there's nothing that's going to take your soul out of the hands of Christ. So we forget that the victory has already been won.
That's it.
So while we engage with the reality that there is a demonic supernatural side, at the same time, Jesus Christ is the one who's already won that battle.
Amen. Right there, that part.
And so we can walk into it we should be able to walk in with at least a certain amount of humility and respect and caution, but at the same time, not with fear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amen.
Because, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, fear God, not man.
I went to a conference, and they were asking Charlie. Well, Charlie he said it's so simple to go into college. It's very simple. You see, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God,
right.
And the colleges don't fear God,
right? Right.
So therefore, it's very easy to use a spiritual principle and the Holy Spirit to get some of these answers out.
Yeah.
That's how he's able to just walk off with them. And you notice none of the professors hardly ever came. Yeah. Okay, now my wife wanted me to ask you, what in the world is Earth Sabbath? You just did a presentation.
Yeah. So that was an idea that came out of the United Nations Environment Program,
of course,
back in 1990, and it was really predating that into the 1970s. There was a movement that said, hey, in order for us to have respect for the earth and to engage in activities for the environment, we need to take and have an Earth Sabbath rest day. And so in 1990, they announced UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. I'm
trying not to laugh.
I know. Announced that June 5 would be
June 5.
Yeah, that's right. June 5, 1990 was the Earth Sabbath rest day. And so they put together, and I had it here at the church, I held it up. They came out with a worship book with suggested prayers and suggested sermon notes, and there's even a song in there with like the notes and everything, so you can sit down at the piano. I had a friend do it on the piano.
Okay, wait. I got to ask this, and I know I'm going to regret asking this question. With you, were there any Christians involved with this?
Yeah, unfortunately, there was lots.
They always can find them. Go ahead.
I know. So-called. Yeah, exactly. So Noel Brown, at that time the director of UNEP, went to Los Angeles, and he made an announcement in front of a group of Christian pastors, leaders from different denominations, leaders from other faiths, and they had a kind of an interfaith board that helped flesh this out. That included, again, pastors. So yes. And this is a crazy thing, because I've dealt on the aspect of globalization.
You can always find them.
I know that. I know. So here's something else that's kind of crazy. So you know that I've been to UN events. I've been to global government events. If you go into the history of that, who do you see at the forefront of that movement at the turn of the last century? Right around World War I, before World War I, right in that time frame. Who was it that was pushing the idea of world government more than anybody else?
Wouldn't be Klaus, would it?
No, well, he is not even alive yet. We're talking like 130 years ago.
I have no idea.
Up to roughly 80 years back or so, and even all the way up to World War II. The biggest proponents of world government and globalization came from the Christian community, came from pastor groups, from the Federal Council of Churches.
I've seen that list, and I had to take a picture of it.
Yes.
It's like,
but because they believe that they can build heaven on earth.
Utopia.
Well, here's the problem. Whose job is that? Is it our job? We're to proclaim the kingdom, but we don't build it.
No.
Christ is the one who builds the kingdom.
Yes.
We just proclaim it. He's the one who gives us heaven on earth, not us. Because every time we try to create heaven on earth, it turns out to be a bloody utopian nightmare.
Oh, wow. Okay. This has simply been a sampler. That's it, a sampler, okay? To catch him in full action and us cutting up and me talking about him and him laughing to death, you have to catch our show.
1, 2, 3, and...
In the culture of Christianity, and in the effort of exposing the truth about history and state, urban churches were wrongly convicted in the court of public opinion and branded with such names as Uncle Tom, sellout, race traitor, white supremacist, and the ultimate offense, Christian conservative. Ignoring such insults and breaking free from the plantational strongholds, they now are free free and functioning in the podcast underground here at the Almighty Fear Not Show. All avoiding mainstream media. So if you need clarity on cultural, social, or political issues and how it relates to the biblical worldview, then maybe you can, and then maybe, just maybe, you can employ them. This is Blacklist.
Minister V. Hill here. We have special guest today, Crystal Bontrager. Bontrager. Is that German?
It is German.
I am smart. Okay, Bontrager, and now she is one half of this dynamic duo we like to call the Center for Biblical Unity. Am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and co-author of a book called Walking in Unity. What she doesn't know is that we're going to make her, I have a part of our broadcast that we're putting together. It's called Blacklisted.
Okay.
Okay. And you will be the first white woman on Blacklisted.
Okay. I'll take it.
She's an honor.
I'm honored.
Yeah, she's an honorary Blacklisted.
All right.
And
Our version of diversity.
it's our version of diversity. And but I'm just making that part clear right now. But what we're going to talk about is her show, Theology Mom. Now, interesting thing, if you go to Apple, there will be, and you type in the Center for
Biblical Unity.
Biblical Unity, you will get 3 different podcasts. In fact, if you go to the website, I think it's 4.
Yeah.
4 different podcasts. We're going to focus in on one.
All right.
Okay. Now, in the past couple of past podcasts that you had, which are very good, very teaching tool, take notes and look up stuff, do research, be a Berean.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. One I want to talk about, since this is a mini interview, and we're going to come in for a real interview where it gets a little bit more detail and a lot more fun, is Christian nationalism. You had one on Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, explain to my audience what Christian nationalism is.
Well, it's a term that has many meanings. And
Yes, it does.
This is why it is a very confusing term.
Mm-hmm.
And it can mean anything from white nationalism,
Yes,
white supremacy,
mm-hmm.
or it can mean a Christian who likes to vote consistently with their worldview.
Right.
And if you're against things like abortion, you would be considered by some people to be a Christian nationalist,
Mhm.
because you are trying to bring Christian ideas and perspectives to bear on public policy and law.
Right.
And so it's not really a term that I recommend people use because it is so confusing, but I have definitely had a journey of my own.
Just investigating
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you did that because I've done my own investigation. Now, what I could gather, there's a small brand of Christians, conservative Christians, who wouldn't mind using that term.
That's very true.
There is that.
Yeah.
But it's mainly, would you say, a negative slack behind it when you hear, like you said, at times, what I've noticed in the last couple of cycles, voting cycles, when, especially when Biden was president, they would use that term and then link it with like you said, white Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, nationalism in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Typically, nationalism is contrasted with globalism. So if you're a nationalist, you're somebody who can be someone who loves your country. You're very patriotic. You've served in the military. You salute the flag,
More patriotism
Yeah,
involved.
yeah. Whereas globalism is this idea of being a global citizen, and things like the World Economic Forum that want to bring us all together and kind of homogenize us into a global mindset and entity versus our national distinctives. And what does it mean to be an American or a German or a British person? So
Yeah, piggyback on that, a lot those that do a lot of like prophetic conferences and stuff like that part, a lot of people associate that with the mindset of end times,
Yes.
Okay. In other words, in order for people to accept this system that the Bible does promise is going to happen, they would have to be talked into it or engineered for that.
Into globalism.
Yes.
Yes.
To even accept that. So Marxism would be a part of that connection.
Many people who advocate for globalism also advocate for a version of socialism. That's correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about Christian nationalism and its many different forms, you really have to be careful on how you take it. And the fact that it's so confusing should be a warning signal. Okay, something's wrong with this idea of Christian nationalism.
Yeah, and I think that there's a version of it that I could maybe get behind in saying that I love my country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nationalist, not a globalist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the Bible talks about justice,
Mm-hmm.
and that we ought to advocate
Mm-hmm.
in our country and also in our local governments
Mm-hmm.
for just policies.
Exactly.
We shouldn't have policies where we're killing our unborn children.
Right.
We should preserve marriage.
Right.
We should protect children from predatory behavior. These are things and ideas that we get from the Bible. So if that's what somebody means
Mm-hmm.
by a Christian nationalist, okay, I could see a case for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be very careful about how we use this term in public.
Right.
Because it is so misunderstood.
You got to also understand that there's a set of like progressive Christian that's going to automatically brand it as the white supremacy.
White supremacy.
Yeah, and they use that as a talking point, even though I don't know if they actually mean it, but there is that David French and those kind of guys.
Could I also though suggest that in the historically Black church, there are those historically Black churches which also advocate in Jesus' name for certain progressive policies.
That is true.
It is not uncommon to see Black pastors advocating for abortion or more left-leaning policies. I would say that too is a version of Christian nationalism. It's progressive Christian nationalism.
And that's exactly why she's on the blacklist right there. That part, you guys catch that part right there. But we'll get into it with Monique, the second part. But she's, she has, half the book. Anyway, okay, we don't want to entice them too much. Get them. Okay, we just want to get. Tease. Okay, just a little tease. Okay, now let's talk about this. The anti-Semitic. We witnessed that during the last administration, during the first part of when Israel did their part and answered back. And then we had this upheaval, and people were totally surprised. Even some of it shocked me of the anti-Semitism that's in the colleges.
Yeah.
Now, what did you find out? What was your spin on it? Because you did two.
I've done quite a lot of content related to the war in Israel and trying to help understand anti-Semitism, what it is. I think
it's an American version.
Yeah, and it does show up, and it seems to be growing in Europe as well. And there is a strong push in the international community, in the UN,
right, yes,
to not allow Israel to defend itself. And like you said, the campus uprisings in America of protesting for Hamas, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And having an attitude that Israel should not defend itself. And I think that that's what first put it on my radar of, well, what is anti-Semitism exactly? What qualifies as something being anti-Semitic? And so I've been on a journey for the last year or so and tried to study it in some detail.
Okay. Now, we're going to cut it right there. You're going to have to come back for a serious interview. And like I said, a lot of this is just preview. we have a lot of range. And as far as the Fear Not show, it is segmented, it's put in 4 segments. And this will be the crossover segment and our allies on the other side of the evangelical circle. And of course, the blacklist. So there you go. This is, you want to give out any information? Or,
Come check us out at centerforbiblicalunity.com.
okay. And the book?
Our book, Walking in Unity, is available wherever you buy your books.
And we're going to go into detail about that as soon as we get them both together. Okay. This is Minister V. Hill signing off for the next interview. Hi, this is Minister V. Hill. This segment we call recommendations. Now, a lot of times people do what's called response videos. Oh, that's kind of played out to me. But what we're doing is giving you recommendations. Now, a lot of these people that we recommend, these are people that I listen to and actually learn off of. They do critical thinking, and it's a lot of, sometimes it's apologetic stuff. And what I want to do is show you a biblical worldview and in action, and especially when it comes to apologetics and things like that. And well, let's get started. The first video that I would suggest that you watch is Frank Turek, and this is an older video. It's the name of his podcast is called Cross-Examined. You can go to Cross-Examined, and what you want to look up is the episode with Dr. Owen Anderson. That's Dr. Owen Anderson, and they talk about the top philosophical challenges for Christians and students. Now, what he points out is that not only is this for students that go to college, but this is for parents in the culture. So you'll get these answers. You got to understand that everybody is the next two generations, Y and the millennials, they're very educated, and when they ask you a question about the Bible, they want a academic type of answer that makes sense to them. That actually persuades. Well, anyway, if you watch this now, when you get to this clip, he's going to be talking about pluralism and why it's so important to understand what pluralism and how to answer it, because all gods ain't the same, or we live in a pluralistic society. So how do you answer for the God that you believe in, that who says, Jesus says, no one can come to the Father but except through me? So watch this clip.
Important questions that face us, like does God exist? How should we live? What happens after death? Then all the answers that you get are equal. And so however any religion answer those questions is just an opinion, and every other religion is also an opinion. And so the only real problem is if some student begins to think that their religious answers are the correct ones. And so students are taught to be inclusive and tolerant, except for of anybody who has an exclusive truth claim. Those people you don't need to be tolerant to, because they're breaking the rules, so to speak, and they think that they know things when they don't. They only have an opinion.
Now, there's a show that's called Surrounded. Now, let me give you a premise. Surrounded is usually one person with an idea or a belief, and he's surrounded by 20 people or 25 or 20 people that's in opposition of him. And they or he or she will make a statement, and then the people run up that want to debate him. It's pretty fun. It's done by Jubilee. Now, in this particular one, it was Allie Beth Stuckley. She has her own podcast, and I think you can actually go to her podcast or her station or channel, and you can pick this up. Or you can go to Jubilee, and she goes up against, guess what? She goes up against 20, almost funny to say it, 20 progressive Christians. 20 progressive Christians. Now, what would you do if you were surrounded by 20 progressive Christians and they're asking you all these questions? Anyway, she makes some real good statements. And in this clip that we're going to show you, she asks the question. The first question is, she believes that man and woman are the only ones to be married. And she puts it in the question. Then a guy named Gilbert answers it. He beats everybody to the chair. You'll see it. And I want you to pay attention to a few things. Roll the clip.
First claim is the Bible says marriage is only between one man and one woman.
Yay.
You got it.
I got
Good
it.
job.
Okay, so I am an independent, but on this issue, I do lean liberal.
Yes.
So I don't disagree with you that
Okay.
the Bible doesn't show same-sex couples in a marriage, that it's just not there.
Yes.
My view is that it's because it wasn't going on culturally at the time.
Okay.
And I do understand, that Jesus talks about in the beginning, right? Like God made them male and female.
Yes.
And there is a lot of Old Testament examples of marriage that aren't always just one man, one woman.
Now, before I move on to the next one, a few comments about that clip. If you notice, he said between a covenant marriage between a man and a man. But that makes no sense because what I understand a covenant is between man, woman, and God. That's a marriage. God never said God's not gonna make a covenant with something he already disagrees on. He's already told you, nope, can't do that. That's a sin. That makes no sense. Anyway, that's pretty fun. I hope you enjoyed that, and you actually go and check out the whole thing. Is a great. Let me just say this: I've listened to Allie for a couple of years now. She's a great. She wouldn't tell you this. She wouldn't say this, but she's one of the best apologists I've ever heard. The way she's explained it, and as you can see, she did it in love. When they say defend the gospel or do an apology in love, that's what it is. She's showing you how that's done. So it's a great video. Now the next video, it comes from. Well, let me just say this. I used to be in a Christian hip hop, community a little bit. I owned Heads Up Radio. It was given to me by the former owner, Patrick. Hey, Pat, how you doing? He's the one that does our music for our show. One guy, Trey 9. He's out of Houston, I believe. He's always been a force in the Christian hip hop community. He's produced a lot of people. He's brought out a lot of people. Plus, he does actual ministry in the streets. So he's pretty well known. Now he has his podcast. His podcast is called Something Ain't Right. And now normally he interviews like hip hop artists and people, ex-thugs and ex-criminals and stuff like that. But he decided to bring on, in this particular show, let me look here, a candidate that's running for office named Carmen Montiel. I believe I'm saying it right. She says it so fast because she has a real thick accent. But when you hear the clip that we play, you would say up and down, this is a Christian nationalist. Or she's bought into it. No, she's actually talking with the biblical worldview, running for an office and bringing those values with her. Okay, I know a lot of people don't want, we shouldn't mix politics and Christianity. First of all, who told you that? I want to know where's that at in the Bible? Every prophet I see talk to some kind of king or queen's administration. You had the Pharisees and the Sadducees. That was the lawgivers and the law keepers of Jesus' day and Paul's day. And then when Paul gets ready to they get ready to crucify Paul, and Paul's like, nope, I'm a Roman citizen. I know my rights. Who told you that? Anyway, here's the clip.
When a party is talking about brainwashing our children and convince them that they're not what they are, meaning they're not girls if they're girls, boys they're boys, or start teaching about sex to our little kids, the innocence of children, for me, is untouchable. So that's all part of the socialist plan, which sadly is what the Democrats have become. I always say they're not Democrats anymore. They're the Communist Party of the United States. Being a Christian, for me, freedom is very important. And when we say freedom, is in all aspects. Freedom of speech, my own personal freedoms, the idea of this government to be small. And that's one of the things that we're seeing, how Christians were attacked constantly and more. Like we Christians, we cannot talk. But for example, the Muslims, yeah, they can.
I hope Trey 9 does pretty good. Check out his channel. Check out all the channels that I'm showing you. Now, the next show is called Family Matters. Is with C.J. Pearson. Now, he's a great young thinker, young critical thinker, and he's Christian conservative. Because this is kind of, if you look, we profiling a lot of people that you probably don't even never heard of or never watched the show. So I'm giving you kind of a bread trail to some actual critical thinking that's with the biblical worldview. Now on this show he has Delano. We have in California it was pronounced Delano, but he said Delano. But it's Delano Esquires or Squares. I'm not saying I'm butchering that up. I'm pretty sure of that. But anyway, if you watch the clip. Anyway, and he also has Miss Montgomery. Now, Miss Montgomery is going to be a rock star in the conservative, the Christian conservative black movement. No doubt. She is a star. And I've never even seen her lose a debate. But in this clip that I'm going to play, she's going to explain how other movements have piggybacked on the civil rights movement and claimed it as their own, or try to match up like the LGBT. They want to ride the backs of the civil rights movement to push their movement. So watch this clip.
I read a quote from this sign that still actually, I can't even believe it was real when I saw it. I thought it was like AI or Photoshop. Mm-hmm. This sign again said, "Hey Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then blacks can't share my water fountain." This is a white liberal in Alexandria, Virginia, not too far away from the studio here. What's your take on that sign?
Let's really talk about the fact that they are trying to cause, basically, they are inciting the erasure of what civil rights really is, you know? And so they are just hell-bent on everything gay, and equating gay rights to civil rights.
All right. Now, before I introduce the next podcast, I got to give you some background. A couple of weeks ago, there was a minister by the name of Brian Suave. They have a podcast called The King's Hall or something like that. And he made some statements about black folks. Now, I don't have time to play the videos. I'm sure it went viral, so wouldn't be hard to find. And he basically said that he would allow black people in his church, but he wouldn't allow black culture, while never defining what that meant, leaving the door wide open. We don't know if he meant black culture. We don't know if he meant church culture. We don't know if he meant ratchet culture. We don't know. Or was he just putting it all in one big bunch? Well, a lot of people didn't take too kindly to that. Now, normally, the reason I'm playing this is because there's also a parallel to that. There's a debate about what Christian nationalism is, what is white Christian nationalism, what is white nationalism, what is black nationalism, what is a black church, what is black culture, what is, you see this? Okay, well, anyway, the Center for Biblical Unity has a show called Off Code. In fact, they have about 4 shows. That's and on this particular one, Kevin Briggins, who I think is one of the top-notch thinkers of this day, and he's just getting started. I think he's going to be quite I wouldn't say role model. I would say, what's the word? Force. That's the word I'm looking for. He's going to be quite a force in this Christian conservative black movement. You notice how I'm phrasing that, Christian conservative black movement, because I'm talking basically with black churches and stuff like that. Well, anyway, going back a couple of weeks, they had a panel discussing that guy, the Suave, or how you pronounce his name. Okay. And then there was another discussion because I guess he fired back Suave, trying to, clear up, and I think he made it worse. So there was another, round of people firing back and calling them a racist and this, that, and the other. Okay, now what you were witnessing is what's called white Christian nationalism, not to be confused with Christian nationalism, because if you do a survey, and I've looked this up several times. First, I thought they were kidding. But if you ask the questions that you would ask to see if a person is a Christian nationalist, black people, it turns out that they were more Christian nationalists than white people. I think by 3 or 4%. I think they said that it was like 33% of white evangelicals, fall under this category of white nationalism. They said 37% of black people. And that came off of 2 or 3 different polls. And you've always heard that, black people are pretty conservative. We may vote, a certain way, but we are pretty conservative. Anyway, so on the Off Code show is number 66, and it was labeled Anti-Christian Pathology of the Black Culture. Now, it featured him, Kevin Briggins, Chad O. Jackson was kind of like moderating because we had a brother named is Free Blanche. He's a good brother too, who kind of had a different perspective. So before it started getting out of hand, the brothers got together. So what I wanted to show you is how Christians really settle disputes, or not even. It's not even a dispute. It's just they saw 2 different perspectives. You have to watch the whole show and come out as friends, and come out as admiring each other, and probably going to do projects in the future together. So watch this clip, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I don't think that his comment, in my opinion, I don't think he meant a criminal coming into his church, or a thug or whatever, ratchet coming to his church and wanting to find the Lord. I think he's talking about the aspects of black culture that the normal black folks condone.
I would say I don't think you can take his description of what he described black culture and then attach Jasmine Crockett to that. Violent, evil, murderous, bestial people. I don't think we can sit here and say that is black culture, right? There's a lot of issues I have with black culture. I don't like Joy Reid. I don't like, what's his name in Atlanta, the pastor?
Jamal Bryant.
All of these people that like Warnock, they represent black culture, but they don't fit that description, right? Black culture is more than what he just described. And once I said what he described is those images that Chad was showing in the reel before we got started. He's talking about inner city, low class, violent street culture. And he painted that as black culture.
The next, since we're talking about white Christian nationalism, which would, when you hear most people describe it, they say it's white supremacist and stuff like that. I don't have time to do an exegetical explanation of all that. I'm actually doing a sermon with that kind of tied in. Corey Minor, the smart Christian, who I've seen get ambushed a couple of times in the past. It wasn't right the way they tried to do Corey, but Corey held his own. Now, I don't agree with everything Corey has to say, as I said earlier in our show. But in this instance, he's talking, he's actually, I'm not sure if it's Brian Suave, because he goes in on Brian Suave, and then there's another guy, Joe Webbin. Now, Joe Webbin is another white Christian nationalist. And this guy is truly a white Christian nationalist. He believes that white supremacy, we know nationalism means you put your nation above, but it's white Christian nationalist, so he's putting, and he's very arrogant. So he makes this comment about, well, we ain't got nothing good out of Africa. Like, there's nothing good came out of Nazareth. But he makes this comment, and Corey gives him the business, the long exegetical of what actually came out of Africa. It is pretty funny the way he does it. He just started naming all this stuff. Anyway, you watch this.
A lot of our tools that we use come from and are built off the backs of some of these African inventions. For example, rather than just fishing with fish nets, who invented fish hooks? Well, that was an invention in Africa. What about the axe? What about other metal farming tools? Do you know what metallurgy is? Metallurgy is using these furnaces to produce these hot temperatures to heat up iron and steel to manufacture that. That's where that comes from. That did not come from Europe. That is an African invention. Speaking of architecture, think about the architecture that you see in Egypt and places around it. Now, I want you to think about something before. Think about the fact that you see some of these similar architectural constructions also in South America. How'd that come to be? Well, the first seafaring ships were developed in where? Africa. Think about the fact that Columbus's navigator was an African. And in Columbus's logs, he speaks of Africans sailing from where he's going to. And so the reason why you see some of the similar structures or architectural buildings in South America that you might find also in Africa. Why? Because some of those very same people that had that technology would sail there.
Now we're going to save the best for last. Now, in the last, I met this guy, John Amachuku, a couple years ago at an event. We really didn't get acquainted, but I knew it was something about this guy. And he was pretty tall too, tall guy. Anyway, we talked for a minute, but he had to go, he was preparing, getting mentally ready for what he was going to say on stage and stuff. So anyway, John Amachuku is an actual warrior. Now, this guy, what he's famous for is going around the country to different city council meetings and school board meetings, and he would get the material that they've already okayed, and he would read it back to him. He reads it back to him, and they're shutting the bell down, they're hitting the hammer, out of order. We don't want to hear it. And then he'd make a statement, but you want your 6-year-old to actually have access to that. So he's been arrested a couple times. He's a fire. If you get a chance, I want you to check out his movie. It's called 22 Words. It's a short documentary about his adventures across the United States. Plus, I would advise you to check out some of his sermons. One of my favorites is A Grievous Wolves. 1 and 2. It's pretty good. So anyway, in this clip I'm going to show you, he's talking about Joe Webbian. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. And now what he shows in this clip is he allows the guy to talk, to dig his own hole. Now, my father used to tell me, this is what my father used to tell me, if you let a fool talk long enough, he will eventually contradict himself. If you just let him talk, if you just keep shooting questions at him, they will eventually contradict himself. In fact, that's a technique in a book called Tactics. You just keep asking questions. Just keep asking, what do you mean by that? Why? How'd you come to that conclusion? Anyway, this guy, he talks himself into a hole, and John quickly, as a football player, capitalizes on that fumble.
If there's someone who is black in our church, and they've been in our church, and we know them, and they love the Lord Jesus Christ, great. We're not talking about that person, right. But we're talking about when you go into a crowd of people. If you go into a crowd of strangers, and they're white strangers, there's some danger. If they're black strangers, there is 30 times more danger. Them's the facts. And it is actually a failure of your parental duty. White parents, please hear me. If you teach your children growing up, if you lie to them and say, all people and all races of people in our country are the same. They are not. You are actually depriving your child of factual, truthful information that could save their life.
And so this is the statements of Joel Webbin. Now, I'm in contact with many white evangelicals, many white Christians, and they don't think this way.
I want you to check out some of these shows. Now, the reason I do this is that you can see and apply critical thinking to biblical worldview. You can see how it's done. You can learn. You don't have to take a full course in apologetics anymore at Biola. You don't have to do that no more. A lot of those students have podcasts. A lot of the teachers offer free classes. But this is like an introduction to apologetics and biblical worldview. Biblical worldview is what I kind of do my thing in. But apologetics, I'm a big fan of. So I hope you got something out of this. We'll see you next time on the Fear Not Show. Peace.